Yo, welcome to today's episode. Today we are here with Charles and we are gonna look at one of the vulnerabilities he has found while auditing guilds on Wax. So, Charles, what are we gonna do today?
Yeah, so this vulnerability is against the Grafana server, which I know a lot of us use. And this was found out by a guy called Ryan, who's a very good hacker. He specializes in finding zero-day exploits. And he found this in June, and it was released a week ago. And everyone's been having a look. But yeah, I'm gonna show you how to bypass the security of Grafana and force Grafana to load a URL of my choice, and then you can do all kind of fun stuff with that.
And before we go in, if you have updated Grafana, they have fixed this issue.
Yes, 7.0.2 is the latest. And,
yeah.
Yeah. But as always, the best thing to do is do not expose your internal portals to the internet, like your Grafana, your Kibana, your Elasticsearch. Just put it behind a VPN.
And a VPN, we both use our Wireguard.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Very easy.
So okay, let's go.
You can see that I've installed a Grafana instance on Amazon. So by default, if we go to Grafana, you get the login page here, blah blah. So it's not much you can do here. But Grafana supports the loading of gravatars, and so if I pass this URL and I'm saying to Grafana, can you load an avatar, a gravatar called test? It's not going to work, but you can see it's now bypassed the security, and instead of giving you the login screen, it's loading a image, which is the default avatar if it can't find anything. If you look at the source code of Grafana, you can see where it tries and looks for gravatars is that URL. And the smart hacker Ryan did some poking and found out that if you pass the -d parameter to this URL, it will then forward you to any URL you like. By default, it goes to this URL if you don't pass anything, which is just another place that hosts gravatar systems, gravatar images. So far, it's not the end of the world, but this guy dug some more, and he found that if you pass a URL like this to wp.com, it will actually load this URL in the middle, and you can put anything in there. So it can be anything.io, any URL you got, it will load it. Now, unfortunately, they have now fixed this issue, this website, but I know people are actively looking for other sites that have this same vulnerability. So you can see if I load it now, it's just saying, sorry, the parameters you provided are not valid. So this exploit no longer works as it stands now, but I know people are actively looking. So you still need to update your Grafana.
So the whole host for these avatars has fixed this issue, so it's not a vulnerability right now.
Yeah. But I can show you what was possible quickly. If I go, if I just change my screen here, and hopefully you can see this.
And as you say, this is now a known issue, so people are actively trying to find ways to go around this problem and use it.
So, long story short, I won't go into all of it. So, as I said earlier, if you pass the D parameter to that URL, it goes back to the wp.com, and in wp.com, any URL you put in the middle, it will direct you to. So it ignores this bit over here, the bp.blogspot.com, and that semicolon, it ignores that. And so if I pass this to Grafana, it's going to load that part and that part.
Mm-hmm.
And just to show you what this does is, I mean, and you'd have to set up your own website to do this, but so it's redirect. But Ryan has been so kind to set this up for us all. So when you click that link, you can see it passes you an empty array, but it sets the location to http://. So if I go back to that original link, you can see what will happen there. It's going to ignore that. And because redirect.rhinarator.com passes me that, what you end up telling the server is, Grafana, internally, load this for me.
Yeah.
And I'll show you what that does. So obviously, if I do it now, sorry, I need to do it this way. It just gives me a bad request because the wp.com have fixed the issue. But let's pretend it works. And I will load it on my Grafana server locally just to show you. Can you see that screen?
Yes, I see it. Everything
Okay,
works.
Cool. So now if you're on Amazon, Amazon gives you a special IP address you can do requests to find information about your server, and it gives you information only you should know. So if I pass this URL, which is 169.254, which is the IP address we passed, now you could have added the rest of this into your request, and then externally I would have been able to get your access key ID, your secret access key ID, and a token, and with this information I can log into the server.
So you can, with this exploit that they fixed recently, so it was available until just a few weeks ago. They could.
No, 3 days ago it still worked.
Yeah. So okay, a few days even, and then you could actually get full access to their Amazon server.
Yeah, I mean, you can use your imagination because anything Grafana can look at, I can now look at remotely. So it's basically, it bypasses your firewall. So if you had a block producer running internally that could be paused, I would have been able to do that remotely, as long as the Grafana server had access. If you had the, I don't know if people still do that, probably not, the API that exposes your wallet, you could have looked at that. You could have done an internal port scan, again bypassing the firewall. So any services running internally on this server or any other server, I would have had access to. And I'll show you one service that people sometimes run on their Grafana servers, which is the Grafana image renderer.
Yeah.
Which basically just takes a web page and it sort of takes a screenshot and turns it into a PNG. So if you were running this internally, I could remotely have forced your Grafana server to load JavaScript.
That's not great.
No, that could get really bad. So I'll just quickly show you. So I've got a server running remotely, and all it has is a little bit of JavaScript to say, execute this, and when you execute this, connect to this IP address in this port and pass me this data.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I know on my remote attacking server load this, I can then pass that funky URL and force your Grafana server to do this remotely because it's executing it locally. And then you can see it's now connected to my server and it's passed with that information.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like much, but people who understand JavaScript, you can just use your imagination, because if you look at the packages that comes with the image renderer, you can see it's got Node Express. It's got Puppeteer, which is a headless Chrome instance, which is like Chrome but without an interface. I don't know what these other stuff are, but I'm pretty sure if with a lot of playing around, you could force the server to open a remote shell.
And what happens if you get a remote shell?
Then I've got access to your server, and then I'm in your network.
That means game over.
Yeah, game over. Yeah. Yeah, and all that is from simply leaving your Grafana server exposed to the internet.
Yeah, and what that means is, let's change it. How can we protect ourselves from this? Easy steps. We said it in the beginning, but how can we do it?
Basically, just anything that you need access to remotely, that only you need access to, put it behind a VPN. Whether that's your Nagios, your Grafana, your Kibana, your Last, everything. Just put it behind a VPN. So only you can connect to it. Having a login is not good enough, as you can see.
Yeah. So one VPN that we use is Wireguard. It's one that we recommend other to use as well. It's open source. It's easy to set up. I have a tutorial on waxsweden.org how to do it. So there's no excuses.
Yeah, I was going to write one, but then I saw you did one, and I didn't bother.
Yeah, that's good.
Because also it works from your. There's an iPhone app as well for Wireguard, which I use. So if I
Android as well.
If I want to look at my Nagios remotely, I can actually log into my VPN from my iPhone. So like I said, there's no excuse. Just put it behind a. Put it behind a VPN.
Yeah. And as you said before, this is something that you found with one of the guilds while you are auditing them. So can you tell us about it? What are you testing when you do the auditing for the guilds?
Basically, we start off by looking for any subdomains we can find, and there's loads of various resources. So we look for any DNSA records. We then look at your JSON files for any more domain names, and then we do a port scan of all those systems to see what we can find. And we do loads. I mean, I can't go through everything, and then we pass it through a brute force to look for certain directories on your website.
So if we change it, why are you doing this?
Well, as an example with Grafana, if someone managed to get into your server, they would plant a backdoor. You wouldn't know about it, and they could just move around. They could start going into more of your servers, and eventually they would find your private key, no doubt about it.
Yeah, as we showed before, they can start to find your passwords and log that. And
yeah. And if they do it for enough guilds, they could literally take over the Wax network.
That's not great.
Yeah, and then I just want to what I've shown you today. Someone really honest found it out, and he reported it. But there are people who are as good or even better, who are not good people, who are actively doing these things in the background, and it's all they have to do is get a sniff of Wax and go, oh, I wonder if I can go and attack all the guilds.
Yeah,
it's very important. We as guilds, we must stay protected for the safety of the network. And
yeah, and it's not weird. One way is to just gain access, but guilds some of the guilds have tokens, and they have a lot of tokens. And if you can get access to them, that's a great thing for a hacker.
Yeah, steal your tokens. yeah, and you can imagine the FUD that it will all become if a crypto news site gets hold of the story that a Wax guild was compromised.
Yeah. So what you're doing is great. So we thank you for it, and we are happy to get these showcases of the exploits. So you don't just report it. You actually you have given them a time to fix this problem before we make this video, because you found this earlier. So it's not something you found today, but you have given them time to fix this before we make a video. And we will not say which team it is, but they are aware of this and they have the responsibility to fix it.
Yeah, and obviously, as it stands now, we don't know if there's another external URL that would allow this, but I know people are looking, we're looking, and if we find any, we will let people know as well. But don't wait for that. I'm sure people have already found a way. They just haven't shared it.
Yeah. So thanks for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this technical walkthrough.
Cool. Thanks, Anders.